Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose. And Xbox Game Pass continues to churn out a really impressive lineup of games for the holiday period. I mean, they just have a killer lineup of games right now, and maybe possibly one of the best that I've seen from them since the launch of Game Pass. Now, some of that will depend on how some of these games actually fare when we play ourselves, but we're going to get into all of that today. Then also the PlayStation 5 Pro just launched last week, and we got some pretty good news for it, and then also some rather hilarious information as well. So do make sure to stay tuned for all of that, but let's just go and jump right into things, starting off with the Nintendo Switch and the latest rumor that the long-requested Wii U Zelda Wind Waker HD port is inbound. I mean, it's actually pretty crazy that this hasn't happened yet. Nintendo has ported practically every other Wii U exclusive to the Switch, except, for whatever reason, some of its most popular games from one of their most renowned franchises. I guess it is what it is. Maybe they just don't like money, or maybe they're waiting for the Switch successor. It's hard to tell right now. Nintendo likes to march to their own beat. But a new retail listing did pop up over the weekend that kind of revived hope once again. This was apparently spotted on a Russian game store, and you can see here it shows Zelda Wind Waker HD with a December 31st placeholder date. Now I'll go and tell you right now, if you've seen this rumor floated about, honestly, I wouldn't put that much stock into it. I mean, we've seen random listings like this in the past for other games, and for the most part, these supposed leaks don't amount to much. It could just either be a simple error on their website, or, in my opinion, what I think is happening here is that certain retailers use these leaks as a publicity stunt to drive traffic to their website. Now, that's just me speculating. I could be wrong, but like I said, these type of leaks rarely amount to anything, and for that reason, I wouldn't get my hopes up all that much. Is it impossible? No. But this leak doesn't really convince me of anything either. Now, if a rating pops up from one of the rating boards, like let's say ESRB, well then that's when we'll have something a little bit more real to talk about. Okay, now let's go talk about Grand Theft Auto 6 here for a moment. I mean, obviously the hype for this game is ridiculously high, and that might be an understatement in this case, but admittedly, I think there is some concern for this game as well, or at least from a technical standpoint. From what I've seen online, most people are seemingly expecting a 30 frames per second experience on consoles. Now, some people are fine with 30 frames while others aren't. It really just kind of depends on how susceptible you are to that type of thing. But there are two questions that comes along with this. One is about the PlayStation 5 Pro. Is there a potential chance that the PS5 Pro could perform better than other consoles in terms of its frame rate? And so far, we don't really have that answer. It's just really all speculation right now. But then the other question is for the Xbox Series S. On the opposite spectrum of the PlayStation 5 Pro, there is that question of how the Series S will hold up in terms of GTA 6. And right now, Take-Two does not seem concerned at all about its weaker specs. Take-Two's CEO in a recent interview mentioned that he's never concerned about potential hardware issues. He said, look, we support the platforms where the consumers are for as long as they're there, and we find a way to support platforms despite different levels of tech. Our labels are really good at that. I'm not really worried. I've never worried about where hardware was going. And I've said this many times over the years because, first of all, I don't worry about things over which I have zero control. Secondly, I believe in the audience. The audience is going to show up if you have great properties, and so we just have to make sure to be on an array of platforms. So I think that's really the right mentality to have here. I've seen certain developers from other studios kind of complain about the Series S, but it appears like Take-Two has more of let's just kind of figure it out type of approach and make sure it's great wherever it plays. I think that's really the right mentality to have. But the one thing about GTA 6 is that I think it's one of the most important games for this entire generation because it really has a chance to convince people that are still in the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One to upgrade to this generation of consoles. So sure, a lot of people could migrate to the PS5, the PS5 Pro, or the Xbox Series X. But considering the Xbox Series S is by far the most affordable option, it could actually end up proving to be a very popular device when GTA 6 releases, hopefully, next year in 2025. So with that in mind, yeah, I think it'll be vital for Rockstar to optimize the Series S experience. Now, another 2025 game that I'm looking forward to is Metal Gear Solid Delta. This is actually one of my favorite franchises of all time, and I'm excited to see it with a new fresh coat of paint and some upgraded controls. But obviously, it's been a long time since we've gotten a big-time new Metal Gear Solid game. Metal Gear Solid 5 launched back in 2015, so there's going to be a 10-year gap between big-time releases. And Konami mentioned that's actually one of the main reasons that they decided to remake Metal Gear Solid 3. They said one of the things that's really sparked us to do the remake in general is because we realized that a lot of the newer, younger generation of gamers aren't familiar with the Metal Gear series anymore. And to me, that's one of the main reasons that I love the trend of remakes. Not only because I get another opportunity to enjoy these all-time classics once again, but also because they introduce themselves to a lot of new people that might have missed out on them prior. I mean, even for somebody like me, who's deeply ingrained into the hardcore gaming community, I never really got into the original Resident Evil series when I was a kid. They were just far too scary for somebody like me. But now, as an adult, the Resident Evil remakes, they've really opened my eyes, and they're now some of my favorite games. These remakes are almost a way to revitalize these once popular IP and to keep them relevant to newer gamers. Games, like a lot of other media, are kind of a product of their era. If something disappears for too long, there is that risk of irrelevance. And I want the Metal Gear Solid series to be lauded for another decade to come plus, if at all possible. I'm actually hoping that we get a Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 remake after Metal Gear Solid Delta. Cross my fingers. Alright, so let's go and shift on over to some Xbox news, as they just revealed another big-time Game Pass release as a part of their Activision acquisition. We all knew that this was going to happen eventually, and, well, the time is now, because they just announced the shadow release of Spyro Reignited, which is the remade original Spyro trilogy. So this is actually 3 games in one, and it will officially be available tomorrow on November 12th. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you've yet to play these games, please do yourself a favor and check them out. If you like 3D platformers, you'll thank me later, because these are collectathon platformers and some of the greatest the genre has ever seen. Now, my personal recommendation for 3D platformers is to do everything. Try to 100% the achievements, do the platinum or whatever, because that's a part of the fun for this genre, or at least in my opinion. My only issue with the Spyro Reignited trilogy is that it is a locked 30 FPS experience. Like, for a platformer, the visuals are surprisingly really impressive, and of course that meant that they needed to limit the frame rate for last generation consoles. Now, obviously that wasn't a problem for last generation, but I do kind of hope that Xbox goes in and enhances these games for the Series X. That would be just phenomenal, but even still, these are just such great games, and I'm hoping this is only the beginning for more to come. Toys for Bob, which is the studio behind Spyro Reignited, they did sign a contract with Xbox earlier in the year, which, kind of indicates that they do plan to work on one of Xbox's many IP, and they have teased on various different occasions that it could possibly be Spyro related. I mean, it would be pretty awesome to get a legitimate Spyro the Dragon 4 after Activision twiddled their thumbs for decades of owning the IP. Such wasted potential. Then again, Xbox has wasted potential with Banjo, but whatever the case may be, Spyro Reignited is an excellent addition to Game Pass, which, I'll just go and say it again. Their Game Pass holiday lineup is incredible. Now, I took some heat for saying that last week, but let me just kind of clarify what I mean when I say that. I'm not just talking about the month of November, which, to me, I think November looks pretty impressive as well. But if you look at October to December, their lineup includes Call of Duty Black Ops 6, which is quite literally the biggest holiday game for any platform. That is a day one Game Pass release. Then there's Flight Simulator 2024. I fully expect that to be a high quality experience, just like the previous Flight Simulator. Then there's also Stalker 2. And then next month, there's Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I mean, who knows how these games will turn out? But on paper, this is an incredible lineup of big game after big game, and Spyro Reignited is just yet another fun addition to an already impressive lineup. Let me know what you all think about this, though. Which upcoming Game Pass game are you most looking forward to, and what do you think about this current lineup? What letter grade would you give Game Pass Ultimate for its final 3 months of the year? Now, I have one last thing to go over here, and this is kind of a two-part story. So the PS5 Pro just launched, and if you haven't noticed, it isn't really selling out anywhere. Now, maybe that's concerning, or maybe it's not, because Sony just clarified that the PS5 Pro has gotten off to an even faster start than the PS4 Pro did last generation. According to Sony, its higher price tag has not impacted it negatively. Now, we'll see how that statement holds up after its first wave of buyers. I'm still predicting that it will have a lower buy rate than the PS4 Pro, which was recently confirmed to be 20% of the PS4 install base. That was actually a little bit higher than what I previously thought it was. Now, I could be wrong about the PS5 Pro, but I'm thinking the PS5 Pro will be lower, just kind of based off of its online reaction, which has been much more tepid compared to the PS4 Pro last generation. Whatever the case may be, though, it's pretty clear that Sony has done a good job at meeting its demand, and because they've made it readily available, well, scalpers, yeah, they're not eating quite as well as what they did in the early part of the generation. Now, I think this is pretty hilarious because I think modern scalping is nothing but scummy. But here we are, and apparently multiple secondhand listings are selling below market price. So that basically means that these scalpers are having a pretty tough time selling them, and now they're just trying to get rid of them to cut their losses. To me, this kind of serves them right after what they did early in the generation. Like, that early part of the generation was just so ridiculous. These scalpers, they use bots to buy up all the stock, and they make consoles unobtainable for the masses, which is even worse during the holiday period when parents are trying to get these platforms for their kids, and it's just a terrible, terrible situation. I just kind of hope that Nintendo can do the same thing for the Switch successor. Hopefully they can flood the market next year as much as they can when it launches and keep these scalpers at bay. Crossing my fingers for that. But console launches, or really just any kind of launch, should not be stressful like we saw a few years back. My only thing about this report, though, is that I don't really understand how some of these scalpers were blindsided. I mean, if you pre-order at most of these retailers, you can simply cancel before the shipment, no problem. So you would think that these scalpers would have, done their research and canceled before its release. So it kind of makes me wonder if something a little bit more shady could be happening with some of these listings. But yeah, hopefully this is just the beginning of the end for console scalping. Anyways, though, that's going to be it for this episode. But until next time, make sure to hit that subscribe button and peace out.